Tesla investors have some very big questions right now. Is Tesla stock potentially in buy territory? What is the forecast for the stock in 2026? And how will the Cybercab scale next year? To help us dig into these critical questions, we're joined by Joe Bakhti, an economist, tech entrepreneur, and Tesla analyst with deep insights on both the company and the rise of AGI. Check out his website at pioneerlands.net. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Herbert. Great to be here.
So this, it's a different format than we normally do, but I love talking stock with you. You have a good way to explain things and how your mind is thinking, specifically you, right? And you're sharing this info, whether it's obviously not in financial advice, but you're just sharing how you think. So let's start off with the first question. You did a video. In each one of these, you've done a video on your channel, YouTube channel. So is Tesla stock potentially in buy territory right now?
Well, I think so. It depends, of course. The way I'm sharing information is not primarily as a YouTuber, more as an investor. So I'm basically doing mostly tech investing, and Tesla is my main holding, together with some hedges on the crypto side. That's a whole different story, how you design portfolios for the age of AGI. I like it concentrated on my most highest conviction assets, and then I have a universe of stocks I look at and other assets, but they're all super AGI focused, artificial general intelligence, and all the repercussions of it into finance, crypto, and so on. So Tesla right now is definitely my best idea, has been for a very long time. I think it's the best risk-adjusted return looking forward. My second, number two, was actually Robinhood, by the way, and I will rotate that out and replace it with Meta here. That's like my second, but these are much smaller positions than Tesla.
Because the chief AI guy let go.
Exactly, I posted that. I think Jan LeCun was horrible. That's a different video, but super interesting. But we have to understand, and that's important for Tesla, we have already entered the age of AGI, right? Yeah. Some people discuss it, especially Jan LeCun pushed back on me all day long and on everyone else. He says it's not true. That's why he's gone now, because it is true. And Zuck is taking action. In AGI, what it means, it's not an academic discussion, right? Oh, is it conscious? Is it this and that? Who cares? We are investors and we deal with the job market and with efficiency, productivity, with companies like Tesla, both internally for Tesla, maybe the most important thing internally, and externally for products like Robotaxi Optimus, all the way to other companies like Meta and Microsoft, Apple, and so on, who can also massively leverage this. So the underlying trend here is that the age of AGI has started and is now in a massively exponential trajectory. And AGI for me simply means you can do the job of humans, of increasing number of humans. And if you own a specific vertical, like full self-driving robotaxis, then it's more condensed into one question. At what point do these cars really drive themselves perfectly? And we have this discussion all day long. And I was always, it's always hard to comprehend that this is actually happening, but we have to understand the underlying trajectory of AGI is massive. And that's even unrelated of Tesla, right? You have to understand all the synergies, all the stuff that's going on all over the world, these massive build outs of compute, the advancements in NVIDIA, all of that feeds into each company that tries to do something big. So in other words, Tesla might have very, very complex, deep technological objectives, but the tailwind is bigger than ever before and exponential. And that is the main point, besides Elon and the Tesla team, why I'm so bullish. It's two things. You have a historically unique person like Elon and capability like Elon, plus the amazing organization he's built. But orthogonally, independently, you have the biggest intelligence explosion ever in human history, obviously. And they come together and they're perfectly feeding off each other. That's why I'm bullish, and that's why we are in this rare situation that if in doubt, you have to think in exponentials. If in doubt, every month or quarter that goes by makes it just exponentially more likely that they achieve the breakthrough. So if you bet on April and you're wrong, you're 4 times more likely to be right a quarter later. And then if you're wrong, you're 16 times more likely to be right. That's what people have to understand. It's very different from an analyst an analyst intuition. They think the wrong way. They think, well, if you fail 3 times, every time you lose credibility with me. Whereas I think, well, if you fail 3 times, your odds of winning is now 30 times, like 3,000% higher than the first time, because we are on an exponential. So that is the bigger picture background here. And that's why these fluctuations that we are, of course, everyone gets scared last week, this week, right? When Tesla drops like 15% from 460 to 405. We have to see the big picture here. First of all, we can talk about the tactical picture too. But the big picture is when I run my models, I think the future fair value of Tesla stock is roughly 750 by end of December this year. So we are massively discounted. I think it goes up to roughly 1,200 to 1,300 end of next year. And I had a video out that I think these are my future fair value prices that I use for trading and investing. So I understand the true intrinsic value of the stock. That has not much to do with the actual price, because the market can just deviate whatever the market wants. And so I normally have two things. I have the fair future value, which is roughly, I think, 1,300 end of next year and 750 end of this year, which is in 6 weeks. I know the stock is worth that much on the most reasonable discounted cash flow trajectory. And then I have my price target, right? Which is then considering, okay, given the market and all the craziness and the irrationality, what's going to happen? And I think if Tesla is able to hit 40,000 Cybercabs by end of next year, which is way below what Elon says, but probably way above what most Wall Street analysts think is even possible, right? Because it's 20 times more than Waymo has right now. I think it's a reasonable thing, and we can go into why. But if this happens, I would bet a lot of money. I wouldn't bet. I bet a lot of money that we exceed my fair future value dramatically next year. So in other words, I think the stock goes to 2,000 if that happens, which will be overbought. So then I would be, well, it should be at 1,300. We are at 2,000. Now we probably see some flatlining or drop. But the moment where the market and the world understands, okay, this is crazy. They're just, pushing thousands and thousands and thousands of completely autonomous cars here. Where does it end? And then everyone realizes what we already know, Herbert. Well, it's about millions and tens of millions of these things. We know it. That's why I have the whole model. But most people don't know it, or they don't fully price it in. But at the minute where you have 40,000 robotaxis, everyone will understand, well, the stock can go to 10,000 to 20,000, like there is no end. And I think that will lead, it's always about breaking it down into the number and the narrow channel. I have a high conviction, if we get to 40,000 Cybercabs deployed next year, fully autonomous, we hit 2,000, and that opens a whole range of beautiful possibilities from a investing perspective.
Wow, very nicely. Beautiful way that you frame that, right? Start off at the very highest. Two major trends. The big one is AGI exploding at this point exponentially. All true, agreed with that. And the other one is you've got Elon Musk and Tesla and the economy, Muskonomy, and what they've all achieved. And we're just at the cusp of what it can be accomplished.
So and of course, Herbert, that's the big question, right? That is what everyone has to decide, because it's easy to understand that we are right on a basic principle level, even on the quantities. It's all about the timing. Are we at the cusp, or are we 2 years away from the cusp, or 5 years away, or 6 months? Like that is the mother of all questions.
That's good. So so basically, the answer to the question is Tesla stock potentially in a buy territory, especially now that it's fallen. What's your answer? I mean, obviously, like you said, that timing-wise, you're saying next year sounds like it, but you never can tell what's going to happen in the next 3 months. It could certainly fall some more. Some people are saying that the technical analysts are telling me that, I think the 410 number is critical. If it falls below that, it can go all the way to 360. Again, this is just technical analysis.
Yeah, I'm always using the technical guys as a little bit of a crutch to consider them, but I never trust them. So it's more like, interesting, let's see. Because the technical analysis, the trick with technical analysis is it's kind of correct or helpful or contains alpha, contains important information 60% of the time, and 40% is just completely wrong, which means there's a signal in there. It's not random. And the art of the game, when you invest and do a little bit more aggressive investing or trading around your core position, is to have additional heuristics. At what point should I trust, or should I take technical analysis more into consideration, and when less? And of course, fundamentals and catalysts always completely override technicals. It's clear, right? I mean, if Elon Musk pulls a flying car out of his head tomorrow, then forget your technical analysis, right? So, but if not, sure, if the market is stable and everything works and there's only technical analysis, not a dumb thing. So I have these two perspectives in my mind. One is strategic, 1 year, 2 years out. And then, of course, very strategic. That's helpful just for the red line, for the fair future value. Then I break it down on 12 months target and try to narrow down the quantification, which I just told you what I think. And then, of course, the art and the fun of the game is, can you narrow it down more? And of course, it becomes vastly exponentially harder. Like basically, if you ask me what's the stock doing tomorrow, whoever can tell you the answer would be a billionaire in 1 week.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to your comment about Cybercab, because that is critical. That is the main point that you're making about 2026. If it hits that, it can go to 1,500 next year. But you said 40,000. Now, I agree with you. Like typically when you launch a first product, you can get to 50,000, but Cybertruck and Cybercab are certainly brand new, not only brand new product they've never built before, totally different than any car they've ever made, brand new production model, the unboxed model they've never done before, and brand new supplies. This is a lot of the things that make up this car. The parts are very, very new. So that makes me put a little bit more of a risk on the 40,000 number. And the other one is, of course, is regulation. So there's a big debate, and some people are saying, if regulation does not keep up with Cybercab production, then that's why they think that Cybercab needs to be sold directly to consumers with, like a drivable version of it would be needed to be made. But Elon, at the annual shareholder meeting, he actually came out and he said he thinks that regulation will go in lockstep with production. So he's saying that if they do make 40,000 next year, that they would be able to find enough cities that approve it, that they would roll out robotaxi in 40,000. There's all this risk analysis you need to do. How do you put your risk on this?
I would revert back to what we discussed like a few shows ago. I am of the conviction that neither production capability nor regulation plays any role in this prediction. It's all about capability. It's 100% capability, because first, number one, they had a lot of time for Cybercab. They have thought about this a lot. They're investing a lot. They're already gearing up. And Elon says Q2 is when this thing launches. So even if he's off by whatever, 6 months, which I don't think at that point he would be off 6 months, even then you can reach that, right? And even if you totally fail and only produce 5,000 next year, who cares? Then you deploy Model Ys. So I don't think it's in any way a problem. I think on the regulation side, we have to understand, we are not talking about deploying millions of these things. I'm saying 40,000 next year.
So you're saying 40,000 robotaxis, which could be a mixture of Model Ys and Cybercab. Okay, that's very good. I think
from a marketing perspective, it is crucial that we have Cybercab, and I like Cybercab for a different reason I will discuss in a second. But it doesn't really matter for revenue and the product, right? No one is going to discount the stock for having 5,000 out, because they know Tesla can manufacture these things. If they are 6 months
regulation.
So regulation, why I do not think that's any problem. You have multiple states, as I outlined like in a lot of videos, in the United States that basically have nearly no regulations. You can just walk in there and start doing it if you make sure some basics are covered, right? From Florida to Georgia, Texas has actually now more regulations than these low regulation states. Arizona, very easy. All you need to make sure is this thing works. At the minute where you have crashes and problems, then it's bad. But if this thing just works, you can easily deploy probably hundreds of thousands in low regulation states with no regulatory issues. Other than potentially federal issues, we have to look more into the 2,500 cars without
2,500 is a limit for federally if you create a autonomous first vehicle. No windshields, no rear view mirror, no side mirrors, all the things that I think there's like 500 little regulations that says all cars must have these things. But if you're a driverless car, you don't need these things, and we need to get that 2,500 number changed.
Exactly, but this is why I think Fazat, with his very debated post that Tesla will produce the Cybercab with a steering wheel and pedals, I think in a way was strategically wrong and tactically right. And I'm very convinced they will manufacture and prepare a scaled Cybercab with steering wheel and pedals, but not to sell it to consumers, just to be ready to hit that regulation.
Exactly.
It will be
Exactly.
fake news, and it will be very easy to engineer because this thing will drive very badly. It will not be a driver's car, it will be a total joke, but it will meet the regulations, which is very different from designing a sellable consumer car.
Yeah.
That is a major overhaul that Tesla doesn't want to do.
I agree with you there. That's very interesting. Now, okay, I love what you've brought into this discussion now, which is the idea that if Tesla wants to roll out robotaxi, it doesn't just have to be Cybercab. It can also be just Model Ys, and that's why you're confident with your 40,000 number. And then as robotaxis, it can be a bunch.
It should have some.
It can all be.
I think it's
Ys,
important to have a few thousand Cybercabs, but there's no doubt that Tesla.
Okay.
There's zero.
And then
doubt
you're saying,
Tesla will be
if FSD is so good, you agree with Elon that by next year, you said if it works, which is FSD gets so good, your thing regulation would just fall in the wayside. And go, okay, they've got.
So in other words, like I condensed the entire question again to my core thing: does it work? Does it work means can you deploy thousands of these things fully autonomous with minimum interventions for a remote operator? So basically nothing happens, and that is insanely difficult. But we know we made immense progress. So that's for me still the question why I'm not saying, I would bet everything on Tesla, because that is the remaining risk, and there is risk, right? It's not a guarantee, but if you connect all the dots, it's much more likely than not that this is solved in 2026.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. Okay, so but the other part about back to the question about Cybercab scaling, I think the other angle that Farzad and others are saying is that if you create the unbox model and you actually launch it on April and you actually have a production line, like let's call it production line, but they're cells, right? Unbox model, and they're making it. They want to scale that as fast as possible. So they're not going to just say, oh, regulation's not here yet, so I'm just going to roll out a ton of Model Ys. I still want to get to 50,000 this year and 100,000 and a million next year. And then what do you do with all those Cybercabs? And so therefore, that's what he's saying.
Well, but here's my point. Again, we have to connect the dots. The devil or the angel, whatever you want.
The devil's in the details.
Yeah. The angel is also in the details, the money angel. Like it's all about understanding what is the most likely outcome here, given the information that we have. Okay, let me outline the dots and then connect them. Why I'm very confident. More confident than I would just be if you ask me, Joe, what do you think? Is FSD ready next year? I was like, I don't know. I was like, it looks good, but I have I don't know. But here's the thing. We know, what do we know? We know that Elon says Cybercab production at scale starts in Q2. Okay?
April. He said April.
In April. We also know, given how these things work, that Elon can't be that wrong about it. Because these are massive, this is not a joke, right? These are massive things that are being built. So they are clearly being built, and they're clearly being readied, and it's clear where this goes. So Elon might be wrong 6 months maximum. Extreme, very unlikely, but not more than 6 months. So then it's happening 6 months later. So in whatever, October or something. So, okay, that doesn't matter. And the next thing is, okay, it scales. The second dot we know is Elon says, no steering wheel, and this thing is not being sold to consumers. He was now, 10 times clear. So this is just a fact in his mind. So it's clearly not being prepared like this. It might have a steering wheel, but definitely not for consumers, only for tactical reasons, right? So if we know that, we know they're not hedging. Okay, if they're not hedging, they're not crazy. We are talking about a giant corporation, not just Elon. All the board members, the technologists, the chief financial officer, they're all betting billions and billions and billions of dollars, supply chains, everything on this thing. So yes, it might be contentious in Tesla, right? Is Elon a little crazy? But there seems to be no one in Tesla who thinks it's completely nuts to assume that FSD is ready.
Today, but obviously the discussion and debate happened in Walter Isaacson's boat several years ago, and that's why they settled with the Cybercab form factor, looks like a car, and that they could switch it out to become a sellable car if needed, if something happened and this was not.
Right.
But
But
I do
we know
agree with
they're
you
not
that
preparing this.
I agree
So
with you. I think last year it became much clearer that this was, Elon was right. FSD is here. Robotaxi is coming. It's solved. And so I think at this point, I think they've removed. It's a plan B still. If they need to, they can bring it in, but it's not It's not something that they're actively working out right now. I agree with
right.
that.
So we can basically triangulate on the FSD technology side, which is the only thing that matters. Right. If you give me a golden, whatever, not golden, like a glass sphere, like all these magicians, and you show me, okay, June or
Crystal ball.
August or whatever, this thing works. It's perfect. It's perfect. I would like do crazy things because I would have 100% confidence that the stock goes to 2000. So this is the only remaining question for me. Everything else is noise. Everything else is clear. And so what evidence do we have? And that's the key evidence. We know Cybercab with no effect, no way of using this thing otherwise, is being scaled. That's locked in 100% sure. It is aimed at April, which means it can't be off much from there. We know this is about thousands at least, probably tens of thousands being manufactured next year. They can only use them this way. So everything then, and they cannot sell them otherwise. So everything boils down to FSD. And there seems to be complete clarity in Elon's and Tesla's mind that this will be solved. I cannot repeat enough how important that is, because if they are wrong, it would be a massive disaster. We have to understand that. If they are just sitting there and FSD is not there for another 2 years, it's a massive, unprecedented disaster for Tesla. And like not a little, Elon overpromised. No, now they're all in. They're on billions and billions. And
we know Elon's very conservative. He does not want to lose money.
Exactly.
He would rather stop production of Giga Mexico than risk a downturn in the economy. And he pulled back, and he turned out to be right, by the way.
And that's what we have to also consider. That's why it's important to watch Herbert's show and Joe's channel, of course. You need to understand the mind of Elon. Dummies out there, they think, Elon is crazy and he says all these things, he's always wrong. There are two Elons. There's the visionary ex-posting Elon who talks a lot of BS sometimes, who's very visionary, who's out there, who doesn't care what he says if he's right or wrong. That's one Elon. The other Elon is the operator. Look at the cash flows. Look at the margins. Look how stingy Tesla is. Look how everyone prints money in the Elon universe. Look how he turned around X. If you think that's random, you're wrong. You never ran a company. This is brutal what happens inside. There is zero margin for error, and there's zero chance there's wasted money. They are the best run company in the entire auto industry. So, and I mean best run in terms of cash flow and everything. And that's the two Elons. And when we talk about Cybercab launch and Optimus production, all these things, this is not the visionary Elon. That's the penny pincher Elon that would kill you if you waste money. And this Elon is not going to risk hundreds of billions of dollars in cash on some random guess. And that should make us very confident.
He's got his probabilities as well, and he's pretty confident at this point. It's funny because, I asked them the question at the shareholder meeting, how did you even know 6 billion miles was going to be the actual metric for regulatory approval? And by the way, we just hit 6 billion miles. And he said, I just want to be in the right ballpark, like, the right magnitude of scale. And then now he's trying to decide if we are at that point, and he actually did turn out to be right. Walter Isaacson said the executive team said, hey, just in case it's wrong, can we create a car that's more, we can turn into a drivable car if needed? And that's why he settled. I believe that Elon at that time was actually, which is what I was saying for so long, if you take a look first principles and you know for sure the robotaxi is coming, what would have you designed? Not the Cybercab. You would have created a Zoox. You would have created one that maybe looked like a London cab. Very large interior, lots of space, lots of room for lying down and working and side-by-side working, all that stuff. But they settled, I think that he settled with the team saying, no, we need to create a two-seater, car-looking thing. And just in case. Well, guess what? He turned out to be right. He again turned out to be right. Robotaxi is here, and they didn't, but it was like plan B just in case.
And I want to just point out one more thing. because you know that I like to focus on the brains and minds of the great pioneers, because everything flows from that. If you understand Elon, you understand much more what to do with the stock. And what people, I think everyone who watches has to understand, like, you cannot just sit there, look what Elon says, and then measure if he was right or wrong, and then get the statistics. That's dumb. That's not how powerful people or rich people or successful people think. When they say something, inside their mind, they weigh it with, if I'm right or wrong, what happens? And in most things on X, the answer is nothing. I can just talk BS all day long. There's just no repercussion. If I say, like, oh, the West is doomed, or women have too many rights, whatever people say, it's like, okay, no one cares, because there's zero accountability. But if you say we are building that line, then it changes. And you can see that.
Right.
And you also have to see that these people, it's not for them to be right or wrong. They want to have more money after the fact. Yeah. It's very important. So, for example, when David Sachs and Chamath, two of my favorites, I love them. But when they are on All In and talk about AI and say, this is not going to take jobs, this is going to create more jobs, it's going to be abundance and beautiful. Same with Elon. He says it's not going to be UBI, it's going to be universal high income. Why are they saying these things that are utterly absurd and wrong? Not because they believe them, but because it's for them, it's easier to believe. It's like, well, for Elon, it's definitely a universal high income. And the fact that everyone will lose their job is not something that's good for Chamath or David, right? They want to push the AI agenda. They need as much AI as possible. They need to replace all humans with AI, make more money. So it's a convenient thing to say, not they will be wrong on it, but they will make a lot of money by being wrong. And that's more important. And for Elon, that's what we have to distinguish. Right. Do they make more money being wrong? Then they will keep being wrong, and they like it. Will it have no repercussions? Then it doesn't matter that they say something. Or will they make more money being right? Then they will be right.
Sure.
That's like what we have to understand when we look at these things.
The difference right now today is that they're actually building the car, which means huge investments, and they don't want to be wrong here, because it's a massive, massive impact to the company. And
right, and the predictions are pretty narrowing the window, right? If Elon says April, and we are talking about a massive, crazy, hundreds of thousands of car line,
better be right.
And he also
can rolled out.
Right, and we can also be sure he will be roughly right, because he's not saying this randomly. He sits in the factory. He sees everything that's happening. He knows at this point we are 95% done. It's here.
And he's clearing the regulation too. He's certainly talking to regulators right now, and he's got like plan Bs and Cs just in case. He knows he's playing the probability game. He's one of the best at it, just like you do. On the other side, you're saying, Elon says there's going to be universal high income, not basic income. And that's still so far away that he can say this now. But we know Elon, that he will say something that you're saying it could be wrong because it's lumpy. But Elon might
he will be
find a way.
Eventually right. That's for sure.
He'll eventually right, but he also might find a way, because that's the way his mind thinks, right? Okay, well, I don't want to be wrong. How do I make it right? And then he's going to put plans in place. Hopefully, that's the way we've seen him work.
I think Elon wants to do the right thing. I'm just saying the cost of being wrong for him is zero, and it's the right thing to say. And wrong is also relative. Like what if he's right in 20 years and he's wrong before? Right.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, he's already come to the conclusion he wanted to cut expenses and budget, fix the budget for the U.S. Now he's come to the conclusion it's AI and robots. And so now, how do you get AI and robots in place without it being lumpy? Meaning, so many people are let go, and then there's a lot of So the world is unfair, unbalance, and then eventually in the future, way in the future, it becomes UBI, everybody's utopia. Right, I agree with you, but hopefully he's going to solve that. But he cares.
Well, we need a plan too, Herbert. We cannot just rely on Elon. Will be right eventually, but what happens in between?
Yes, I agreed. Okay, so that's great. You explained a lot the way you think about Cybercab and your does it work kind of thing. And but then you're also saying that, well, given the actions you're watching the Tesla Elon is taking, actual money being put in, actual investments, it sounds like he thinks the probability is quite high that it does work, whatever the word is, but basically regulations will approve it, and it'll be rolled out Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think I spent some time, I didn't do a video on it yet, but I spent some time on the actual technology and how you actually manage FSD R&D. And that also clarified a lot of things to me. It's not just a black box, obviously. They're working on concrete things, end-to-end neural networks. They have done a lot of things, do inference on the chip in the car. The breakthrough was basically AI4, the decisive breakthrough that enables this. And now it's basically going through all the data and identifying edge cases, which is an enormous problem, right? But it can be kind of more and more easily solved. And I think if you could basically extract cleanly all the edge cases and retrain the model, then you're done. I think that is the real problem. That is a major problem, by the way. But we have to understand this is concrete hands-on engineering, right? You need to go through the automated AI systems through the data, extract millions of these edge cases, recode them into feedable things into the training model. And that's a whole system you have to optimize over time. And if you get to that point, you can just eliminate every edge case that's remaining. But that means we are over the key.
That's another very, very good point, Joe. I love what you're saying here. So first of all, your philosophy, and I think makes sense, which is go right back to first principles, really. Everything else is noise except does it work? If FSD really, again, your definition of work is obviously the level of robotaxis it needs to have in order for it to be true robotaxi. Very, very few remote drivers, and regulation is so convinced at this point it works. Okay, to get there, first of all, I highly recommend everybody to watch. Ashok Swami just did a video a month ago, and he explained the entire system that they're building and how they're doing what they're doing. And then, so the key I think is to then put probability analysis of how likely is it to work 3 months from now versus a year from now versus 2 years from now. And then if you go, okay, let's say it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But your statement you made at the very beginning is true, which is, okay, if it doesn't work today, but the way AI works and the way that Tesla's system is set up, that it's much even higher likely that the next month eventually works. And so if you say if it doesn't work, well, then the worst case scenario, or maybe not the worst, but it could be like, is AI 5. So if AI 5 comes out in 2027, that should theoretically reduce a lot of the risk that by that point, 2027,
but even
and all the neural nets,
AI4, AI5, AI6, and so on, that's just one part of the equation. I think that's 10% of the equation. 90% happens on the back end. And that's where the full power
Explain
is.
Like, how do you mean neural nets? How big a data set is? How many chips that they put in? Because that's the other thing, right? He's headed towards 1 million H100 equivalents in XAI, but then Tesla's own Cortex is being built and being expanded.
And I already told you the theory before. You have algorithms, you have data, and you have compute. And I think compute is not the bottleneck anymore, pretty clearly. That's why they don't have to build it out like crazy. That's not the bottleneck. They can retrain these models. So now it's getting to algorithms. I don't think they are the problem. The actual core algorithm is also pretty clear. And then it gets to data, and all the problems are in the data. How can you format and prepare and pre-digest the data better and better for better and better training runs? I think that is 90% of the internal problem. Then these AI 4, 5, 6 chips, what they're doing is they just increase resolution. They flatten out these 8 cameras into a singular stream, right? You need to feed the model with a singular stream. And they're doing pre-processing, which is important. So when you think about the human eye, for example, you get images or videos into your eyes. They're just pixels. Then your retina converts them into electric signals. But then you have all these neural layers behind it. They edge detection, background detection, all these things before it goes into your cortex. And the interesting thing is Tesla modeled that out to basically say, yeah, this pre-processing happens in the car because that allows us to feed then a much leaner stream, right? Imagine this. Imagine what you actually feed the models. That was for me a breakthrough to understand. What is being trained? What is this neural net that's being trained? Are you training it with pixels? No, of course not. That's stupid. So you basically pre-digest it and this thing gets trained with actually pretty already understood little models. So it's like, it says, oh, there was a pedestrian coming from the left, right? And there was a car, and then there was a snowstorm. That's what this model is actually being trained with, which means the pre-processing needs to deliver that. And it's like, there is a passenger, there is a pedestrian, there's snow.
That's why he says that the cars themselves are sentient. It's not.
Exactly.
It's not like a dumb edge thing, and then it's this neural net in the data center that's sentient. No, each car has enough power and brains to be able to actually truly understand what's going on.
It's very fascinating when you think about it technically from a knowledge theory perspective. What is a feed? And a feed can be all kinds of things. Basically, what abstraction level you stack. Is it a bunch of pixels? Is it compressed pixels? Is it edge detected things with edges? Or is it there's a person, there's a car? Or is it, oh, there's a BMW? Oh, there's risk. There's
it
danger.
knows what's going on. Yeah,
so you need to figure out what is the right training abstraction and then deliver that abstraction on the car, either some of it pre-processed and then 10% on the back end processed, or all pre-processed. These are all things you need to figure out, and they figured out. And the more you figure out the basic framework, abstraction levels, all these things, and who processes what at what point, the exponentially more progress you make. That's very important. The more you, because in the beginning you don't know anything. Maybe you feed it pixels, maybe you feed it edges, maybe you feed it. And so all of these things, the more they get figured out, the exponentially faster your progress becomes. And then you also have to go into the old data and figure and reprocess the old data to get to the same feed into your model. So that's kind of the problem universe you have to solve. And that's why I'm so bullish, because that problem universe, number one, becomes exponentially better solvable the more progress you make. And number two, this is a problem universe that lends itself perfectly to AI. And that's the other curve, right? With Claude and Grok and all these things becoming better and better, your speed of progress in solving this data structure problem becomes just exponentially faster. You can code all that stuff, automate it, AI tells you more and more. That's why, and that was important for me, because that means it's a pure data processing problem, an organization problem. And that's why I'm very confident they will solve that to a dramatic extent.
What is the question was, I'm going to ask you now, is what is your probability that, again, your definition of robotaxi solved next year? Is it high? Is it 90%? Is it 50%? Where are you at?
It's hard for me.
Give you a date, like the end of next year. Yeah.
My rational mind is clearly overtaking my intuition. My intuition would say, ooh, I don't know, maybe 40%. My rational mind says it's 95%.
Okay, that's what I needed to hear you say.
So basically, I don't believe it, but I know it. My knowledge tells me, dude, if you
that's usually the opposite, isn't it? Usually it's like, I don't know it, but I kind of feel like it's gonna happen. My insights, my instinct
says. If I just
says,
connect the dots and say it's 95% or more. If I just listen to my feelings, like, how can this even, I don't know, because it's an enormous thing. But
there's a lot of unknowns. There's too much unknowns that no matter how much work you just did, it's still too much unknowns because you're on the outside. You have so many smart,
the reason I'm so confident is you have extremely intelligent people like Elon Musk and his entire team that make enormous hard bets that would lead to complete disaster for them if it's not true. And I do not think that is in any way likely. That's my main argument.
I agree. In fact, it could actually be, I mean, this is a total guess, but it could actually be that, you know how they're already testing a version of the product 6 months ahead of us? They told us that the FSD version that the robotaxi was using in June was 6 months ahead of what we were using. And now we're there, and we're now using 14.1.4, now 14.1.7, and now we're going, oh my God. When I got in the robotaxi in June 22nd, right, one of the first people to try it out, I immediately, the very first thing I said was, this is different than what I've been driving at home. This thing immediately moved fast. It was a lot more smoother. It was not making, there was no decision making. You can just feel like this thing knew what it was doing. And I just realized right away, like what I love about the car is when, let's say you're at a stoplight and then it turns green, it just goes. It doesn't like, okay, the situation now I can't, there's no delay at all. It knew already that I can go, it's safe and everything like that, like just the confidence level. And so they could actually be 6 months ahead than what we are using now. And we're already at this point. So they may already know, theoretically, 6 months from now, It's now November, right? So it's December,
I don't
January,
think they have
February,
certainty.
March, April.
I think it's not certainty. I don't think they have solved it, but I think
I agree with you. But I'm just saying that they are actually ahead of us.
Curves in their minds that all point to it, multiple Bayesian layers that all say it's basically
and they have all the data. They have all the data. So for example, like, he said, oh, we're going to allow you to text and drive within 2 months. And that's just an idea that a lot of us, and me, I cannot fathom that could even happen. Like, oh my God, that's a big jump. Now I know that there's a way to do this that's still supervised. Like you're still supervising it and then you're texting and then I'll just beep you in a scenario where it feels like, oh, I'm heading into something I may not be able to handle. It'll beep you and says, please supervise now. So it could be like that.
By the way,
supervised.
But what?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah. So I lost my train of thought, but yeah.
I just want to make one last comment. By the way, where did I read this? Some dummy analyst. I don't know who it was. Don't want to name names, but the idea that there is competition is very stupid. The idea that anyone has solved that. I read somewhere
I know where you read it.
And someone said, "Oh, all the Chinese have already solved."
Yes, come on. Are you playing dumb? We know who said it. It's Gary Black.
Yeah, I thought Gary Black. So it's that's just
he said that it's a commodity. FSD and robotaxi is a commodity. Everyone's going to be doing it. And then the question was, well, what do you mean everybody's doing it? He said there's Baidu, there is Huawei, there is Waymo. They're all already getting 250,000, 450,000 rides per week.
That's completely
yeah.
Yeah, that's not smart.
And then they can license their technology to any car company, and it's going to be a complete commodity, and there's no actual value add to Tesla stock because this is just a wash.
Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate, this is a hilariously deluded take. Yeah, there is not just no competition, no one is on the horizon. And I told you my theory that Waymo has a chance, but the chance is only that in 2028, 2029, there's AGI, true AGI, ASI, and it just solves the problem out of left field. And then you can put it into cars. But that would require you then to catch up to Tesla, which is impossible at that point. That's like, and only Google could do that. So I think Waymo has a shot if they switch bait and switch the entire system and are lucky enough to get it. I think they will. I think every iPhone can drive your car, probably in latest 10 years, but probably in 5 years or 7 years. But then, and if at that point there's millions of these things on the street, you're toast. Then for other reasons, you have no chance anymore. So it's like a small window where you could compete with Tesla. You need to be able to do what Tesla does before Tesla gets to 5 million robotaxis or something. And I don't see any chance of this happening. Because right now, just to be clear, no one can do that. And there's exactly 0% chance that anyone will be able to do it before that breakthrough from completely different direction happens, which, is a whole different story.
Oh boy. Yeah. And I think the thought I had when I forgot, I had lost that train of thought, was just simply Tesla has all the data. So if they say that they're going to do supervise, they're going to let you text and drive, they wouldn't just say that. They actually have all the data of all of us driving, even if we have FSD or not FSD, and we know, they already know which parts of driving is safer, that's the lowest probability, which parts are more difficult, and then they can feel with confidence. Again, they're playing, like you said, they actually have run all of these statistical analysis.
I mean, you need the data. You need to know exactly what's happening. You need a giant team who does that for years and years and years. Sure, if you steal IP, which always happens, you leak it, someone else could understand how it works. Then they need the data, they need the fleet, they need the chips, and they need Cortex. So good luck with that. Who's that?
Yeah, they need supercomputers. Wow, this was a great conversation. Initially started talking about stock, but as you point out, the stock is dependent on your thesis, and the thesis right now for Tesla next year is primarily on robotaxi. You feel confident that Tesla would not invest a lot of money in Cybercab scaling next year unless they themselves have, not just Elon, the whole company feels very confident at this point that
and we know they're not hedged. We know they are not hedged in the sense that they will sell the Cybercab to consumers.
Theoretically, they are hedged. because that's why they created the Cybercab the way it is, and that they could swap it out with parts that could be sold. So I'm not sure what you mean by they're not hedged.
Well, they're not hedged for next year. They're not hedged in the sense
that could be true. Yeah, because that's the debate.
Develop a new car and stuff like that.
Agreed. That's the debate. The debate was always initially we heard them say, the other side say, "Oh, they'll just slap on steering wheels and pedals to the same car." Okay, yeah, they already have steering wheels and pedals to test the car, but then you say, no, the car's, in order for it to be truly sold to consumers, it has to have this, 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 and this, and this. And they go, oh, okay. Then it turns out, well, how much of the car is different now? And is it 80%? And is that still the same car? Is it 50% of, how much change you have? And then if you're saying that if they truly did that, they would take another 6 months, at least a year to
I think longer.
Get that version out.
It's a whole car design iteration only on an easier scale because they would use these pieces. But it's very clear that what they are preparing now is not that. It is a full Cybercab. Elon made this very clear. So they are not hedged for next year. They cannot launch an affordable car for consumers based on the robotaxi on Cybercab next year.
Agreed. I think even Farzad said, I think he said 2027. When 2027 comes, that's when you'll see that this will be sold to consumers. And I'm thinking that's so far away. That's a whole year in AI world. Tesla will probably
and for us,
have solved it.
As investors and people who want to understand the stock, that doesn't matter. I don't care about 2027. I know they're launching this thing. It's going to be at scale with billions invested, and it will not be sold to consumers. And it's based on April targets, which means there is complete confidence on the Tesla side. That's all we need to know.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. That was great. You actually gave numbers of what you expect Tesla might. Again, you're all about probabilities, and this is this year, next year. Thank you. Follow Joe. Check him out at pioneerlands.net. Check out his YouTube channel, Joe Bakhti. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.